Good evening and thanks for joining me on Business. Now, former technical director of the West African Monetary Institute, WAMI, David Asante, has downplayed any negative effect on the economic relationships between the Francophone countries in West Africa and their former colonial masters. According to him, the commitment by the West African states to use the common currency is an indication that no country will depend on its colonial masters. Now, for financial support, again, he spoke with Joy Business in an interview in Accra.
Until early this week, the ECOWAS has had to postpone the introduction of the common currency many times since 2003 due to the lack of political will as well as failure by member states to meet some target under the convergence criteria. Some people believe the adoption of a common currency for the sub-region could have negative consequences on trading between the former colonial master fronts, a development which has been downplayed by the former technical director at the West African Monetary Institute, WAMI, David Asante.
I think, well, with time, I believe the Francophone countries themselves are aware that they cannot permanently depend on the former colonial master, if you like to call them. Since they are focusing on Europe, it's better also they find a way to focus in West Africa, where they can assert their real economic independence. So that I believe this is something that is in the right direction, and I'm sure now they are all very eager to join with ECOWAS to form the single monetary zone. At the moment, they depend a lot on the former colonial masters for trade. But this is a historical thing, just like Ghana. Ghana, we also depend a lot on trade with the UK. So it's a matter of time. These ties, if we present them with a better alternative, these ties will ease, and then they will find it more convenient and more profitable to trade within the sub-region.
So how big is the West African market to promote intra-trade with the common currency?
And I think it's happening. I would say it's more than big, because if the other countries like Gambia, which is very small, have its own currency and is managing it, we have 16 countries coming together with Nigeria spearheading it with a population of almost 200 million. Ghana is 20-something million. I mean, it's more than enough to promote any type of business we want to do in West Africa.
So do I say we are considering population more in this?
Both population and economic activity-wise, I think we are more than able to sustain any currency that we want. And as I said, if the individual countries are already sustaining their own national currencies, why not? And also the Francophones have proved that a common currency can work.
Having worked at the WAMI for almost 20 years, he thinks the adoption of ECO could also present a good opportunity for industries and investors in the member states to reduce costs of doing business due to savings to be made on foreign exchange.
The British High Commissioner to Ghana, Ian Walker, has warned that Ghana's drop in the Corruption Perception Index could affect investor confidence in the country. According to the index by Transparency International, Ghana dropped 11 places from the 2016 ranking to place 81 out of 180 countries in the 2017 ranking. Speaking to Joy Business, Ian Walker reveals that stricter interventions would have to be employed to deal with corruption once and for all.
A very positive step has been taken with the appointments of the Special Prosecutor. I think that's the first step and an important one. The next piece is making sure that the Office of the Special Prosecutor then follows through and delivers on his mandate, and that the governments and the opposition and civil society give him a chance to succeed, and I hope that happens. But more broadly, for me, the biggest antidote to corruption is transparency. It's clarity of process. And I think that no country is without corruption. I don't come here to lecture. I just say that corruption isn't something that I kind of feel that. Listen, I think corruption is really damaging for Ghana's interests, and therefore I think that the ability to uncover it and deal with it is absolutely essential. And secondly, that any perception of corruption is also a problem, because it's a disincentive for future investors, it's a disincentive for responsible investors, and I think Ghana has a huge opportunity, as I said earlier, real optimism, but it does need investments, and it will need, as it becomes more economically independent, it will increasingly become a bigger part of the global system, and in a global world we are interdependent, and how we get more people to invest here responsibly is going to be a key part of the future. So, you know, not just dealing with corruption and being seen to deal with corruption, I think is essential for all governments, and it's important for Ghana.
In other business stories, telecoms giant MTN could be raising about $620 million in its planned initial public offering. Head of research at Databank, Alex Boahen, says MTN's participation on the stock exchange will stimulate some more vibrancy on the burrs. In an interview with Joy Business, Alex Boahen says the success of MTN will, however, depend on the price offered per share.
IPO, in my view, I think should generate some level of interest, but the success of it or not, I think will largely depend on the pricing. I mean, multiples are skyrocketing on the exchange. I mean, if you look at the numbers on a year-to-date, we are talking about something close to 30%.
Are we also going to be looking at more, engagement from foreign investors as well?
Well, for that, I think further clarity will be needed, because per the regulation, the 35% should be sold to the Ghanaian populace, you understand? And raising $447 million is just about 2 billion Ghana cedis on the domestic market, I think could pose as a challenge. But looking at the growth story of MTN, I think that the investor community will actually be happy. This is going to be massive. I mean, if you take the cross-listed stocks like ETI, maybe Anglo Gold Ashanti and Talo, MTN certainly is going to be the biggest or the most capitalized stock on the stock exchange, talking about an estimated capitalization of about close to 6 billion Ghana cedis. So it is really going to be probably the biggest player on the market. But let me also highlight that it could potentially also deepen liquidity on the market. You know, our market, if you look at the numbers, liquidity has been one of the main challenges that we've been experiencing, and with having 35 billion listed, 35%, which would translate to about 2 billion listed on the market, I think could improve liquidity if, and I choose my words carefully, if the investor base is diversified, because you could have a situation where the investor base could be highly concentrated with some few corporate shareholders.
Okay. And the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority, GRA, would now have access to the correct values of imported goods from originating countries this year. That's the assurance by the Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Emmanuel Kofinti, as the authority introduces the GF Trade and Temporary Vehicle Importation Monitoring System. He said this will allow the division to rake in higher revenue by offsetting shady deals. He was speaking at a management retreat organized by the Ghana Revenue Authority in Kumasi.
The focus for 2018, in addition to the reforms, includes the introduction of the GF Trade and the Temporary Vehicle Importation Monitoring Systems. The GF Trade Database Evaluation Tool, acquired with support from DANIDA, which enables customs to have access to the correct values of imported goods from the countries of exportation, and also verify values declared by importers or declarants. This would enable customs breaking higher revenue by discovering fraudulent declarations. The development and installation of the Temporary Vehicle Importation Monitoring System will track temporarily imported vehicles which have overstayed, as well as identify smuggled vehicles, often being illegally used in the country. The risk management system will be enhanced more with the effective deployment of the post-clearance auditing processes. There will be a focus on customs house agents and freight forwarders generally, and even the shipping lines, to ensure that manifests, bills of lading, invoices, and other trade documentations are not manipulated. Recalcitrant clearing agents will be banned from doing business with customs. Customs will adopt an anti-corrupt stance to serve as deterrence to fraudulent conduct. Customs will initiate the prosecution of recalcitrant clearing agents, importers, purported transistors, warehouse operators, even after recovery of all the necessary revenues.
That's all by way of business tonight. Many thanks for your company. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji Riafi. There's more news coming up. Don't go away.